Hello everyone, I'm Bob Goulder with Tax Analysts. As you probably know by now, the United States Congress has finally gotten serious about tax reform. In fact, as we speak, lawmakers are crafting legislation that will affect the economic outcomes of almost every American. Given the nature of our global economy, any tax bill that Congress enacts is bound to have significant ripple effects overseas. In light of that, Tax Analysts has decided to host a series of high-level tax symposiums in Europe starting in early November. Let me give you these dates. On Monday, November 6th, we'll be in London, England at the offices of Herbert Smith and Freehills. On Tuesday, November 7th, we'll be in Dublin, Ireland at the Matheson Law Firm. On Wednesday, November 8th, we'll be traveling to the Netherlands for an event at the Amsterdam Center for Tax Law. And finally, on Thursday, November 9th, we'll be in Milan, Italy, speaking at Bocconi University. If you're based in any of these cities, we hope you can join us and learn more about the details of how to register by visiting the events section of our website. That's taxanalyst.org. If you're fortunate enough to attend any of these events, you'll be able to hear Kara Griffith and Marty Sullivan from Tax Analysts. Also, Alan Granwell from Sharp Partners. In addition, a whole array of foreign international tax experts. And Marty Sullivan is joining me here, our chief economist and contributing editor at Tax Analyst. You're going to be a busy guy next week, Marty.
That's right, Bob. Just the traveling was pretty exciting, but also exciting is what's going on here inside the Beltway. It's this week that the chairman's releasing his mark, and tax reform is finally really beginning, and 1,000 details are going to come spurting out, and the politics and the economics and all the technical issues are going to be ripe for discussion.
So before the chairman's mark comes out, you can have a lot of happy talk about how tax reform is going to do this and do that. But when you actually see the details and you get a sense of who the winners and losers are going to be, that's where things start to get interesting.
That's right, because politicians, before the mark, they can just talk about the corporate rate cut and the increase in the standard deduction,
sure,
all the candy, but
it's aspirational. It's all the promises of why you want to do tax reform.
Right, but to stay inside this small $1.5 trillion budget that they've given themselves, they're going to have to raise taxes for many individuals in different ways. And so we're going to see lobbyists, literally armies of lobbyists attacking the Capitol buildings.
Okay, so the army of lobbyists, they've already started, but they really go into high gear starting with the release.
Once they know the specific,
yes,
the specific issue, they go into high gear. Yes, absolutely.
Now, neither of us possess a crystal ball here, but I just wanted to get your general sense of the prospects for or against enactment and what factors play into that.
Yeah, I think it's we live in. These are unprecedented times. We have dynamic scoring. We have a very rushed schedule of events. But if you step back and look at it from 10,000 feet, the way I look at this is it's going to be a fundamental battle between middle-class tax cuts and tax cuts for businesses. And this whole process really started out mostly initiated by business groups. But there is rising populism in the United States. Certainly the president is at the populist end of the spectrum, sure, and the Republican Party is divided into dividing into two parts. One more interested in appealing to the middle class, the other appealing to business groups. So this bill, I think, will evolve from a pro-business bill to a pro-middle class bill. And that's because the Republicans have to have a win after the failure, their failure to enact the repeal and replace of the ACA.
Yeah. Their brand really depends on scoring a victory here.
More so than ever. Yeah. More so than ever.
Well, now there's an old joke in Washington that the lobbyists will like to sit down and actually write the legislation if they could. And you suggested that it could be tilted more towards business interests at the beginning of the process, but then pivot and tilt a bit more towards households, as the process draws on longer. Is there a case, if you're in the business side of that, to speed things up, to hurry up and try to finish all of this before Christmas? Is that even within the realm of the doable?
Well, in 1986, when we had our last Tax Reform Act, the chairman's mark came out in September of 1985. That was for Ways and Means Committee Chair Dan Rostenkowski.
Sure, Rusty.
Rusty, and it took 13 months before the president signed that bill. So
That's over a year from the introduction of the mark to Reagan signing the bill.
And that was, I mean, before that mark occurred, Mr. Rostenkowski had 33 days of hearings, and a comparable number on the Senate side as well took place. So we are really moving at light speed compared to the pace that we had in 1986. And we're moving under more adverse conditions. Economically, our debt levels are much higher. And politically, if you haven't noticed, the partisanship is a little bit more avid.
The partisanship has to be noted. A lot of people just their initial reaction is that there's no way they're going to get any Democratic votes.
Right.
But then can they even depend on all of the Republican votes? Because they have maybe some room to work with in the House. We saw with the budget resolution that they lost about 20 votes there. But on the Senate side, they only lost the one vote. And it's a good thing that they didn't, because they don't have a very big margin there. How many senators can they lose?
Well, they have, there's 52 Republicans in the Senate. In order for this, under the reconciliation rules, they need 51 votes. They will get one more automatic yes from the vice president. So they need 50 votes, so they can only lose 2. Senator McCain did not vote for the Bush tax cuts in 2001 because he was worried about deficits.
Sure.
Our deficits are
a lot worse.
Are a lot worse now, and so and also there's a little acrimony I heard between McCain and the president, and so I think McCain is probably a no, and then Rand Paul didn't even vote for the budget resolution, so he's probably a no. And then,
well, then if they lose McCain and Rand Paul, then they can't afford to lose anybody else.
That
would be 50-50.
That would be 50-50.
With Mike Pence casting the deciding vote. But there's still some uncertainty.
Yeah, well, we have, let's see, we have a special election in Alabama where there's a chance a Democrat might win, but even if the Republican wins, it's unclear whether he would vote for the bill. And then we also have Senator Cochran, who unfortunately is very ill right now, and it's unclear whether he will be able to make it to the Senate floor. And then there are other Republicans with other concerns. Susan Collins of Maine and Marco Rubio is insisting on large child tax credits, again, moving towards the populist end of the spectrum. So there is going to be a lot of uncertainty, which is bad for business. There's going to be a lot of drama, which is going to be good for television journalism. So it's prime time for tax reform, Bob.
And one last statistic. I heard a figure, something like 75% of the public wasn't entirely sold on the case for corporate tax cuts?
Well, actually, consistently in the polling, and these are multiple polls, over 70% of the U.S. Population believes that corporations and wealthy individuals aren't paying their fair share. So again, if you want to go where the votes are, you're going to tilt toward a middle-class tax cut. And so it will be very interesting to see. We know the Democrats are going to criticize whatever Mr. Brady puts out, but it'd be interesting to see how the Republicans respond. And if there's some dissension in those ranks, the bill may be in trouble. If they can hold together as a team, then there's a good chance this bill could move forward.
All right. There you have it. Hold on to your hat. Tax reform is going to be a roller coaster ride. And if you're lucky enough to be in Europe next week, come and see us in those cities. Again, that's London, Dublin, Amsterdam, and Milan, where you'll get to see Marty Sullivan. Marty, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you.